everyone. Welcome back to Let the Lady Speak. I am your one and only host, SG. On tonight's episode of Let the Lady Speak, we are discussing how to identify warning signs when dating. I have a special guest. Dr. Allen is going to be here tonight, and she and I are going to discuss this topic. But first, stay tuned. We have a brief commercial, and we'll be right back. Hello, everyone. This is SG from Let the Lady Speak. Are you interested in starting your own podcast? Download the Anchor app at Anchor FM. It's free. There's creation tools that will allow you to record and edit your podcast right away from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more podcast platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimal listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So I support you being your creative self. Try Anchor. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Let the Lady Speak. I am your host, SG. However, today I have a co-host. I have Dr. Allen here today, and I'll have Dr. Allen introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be with you all today, and I thank SG for the invite. My name is Dr. Allen. I am a nurse. I've been a nurse for over 30 years, and I just want to be able to share with you all some things that I've learned over my years of dating and some of the choices that I've made.
Absolutely. So as you guys know, we have a red flag series here on Let the Lady Speak, and Dr. Allen is going to discuss how to identify warning signs when dating. And I really want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for coming on Let the Lady Speak for my first one-on-one. I appreciate you so much for your time and energy and just your support. So thank you, Dr. Allen.
You are welcome.
Thank you. So we're going to get started. How do you identify warning signs when dating?
So one of the ways I identify warning signs when dating is, first of all, we have to collect the data. Mm-hmm. There's absolutely no way for us to be able to know what we are in if we don't collect the data. However, if we don't know how to collect the data, then there's nothing for us to build on. There's nothing for us to be able to look at and analyze because we have nothing there. Oftentimes, I find that when I've dated in the past, I've just been so consumed with the individual until I fail to pay attention to warning signs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What are some of those warning signs that you've noticed that you may not have paid attention to?
Some of the warning signs I would say is when we are in relationships with people, we should pay attention to their interactions with other people. One of the examples I use, I pay attention to people, the way they respond to people who are in a servant mode and not going out to dinner, going out to lunch, breakfast, what have you. That is a wonderful opportunity to pay attention to how this individual responds to the people who are waiting on the table, serving the table, whatever word makes you feel comfortable. I have seen people literally, I've seen someone do this. We're at a restaurant, they're running the waitress back and forth. They need tartar sauce, they need hot sauce, they need something reheated, something is too cold, something is too, and I began to feel like, wow, what does it take to satisfy this person?
Right.
And after the person, the server, the waiter, the waitress have gone over and beyond the call of duty, the person haggles with wanting to give them an 18% tip on a $100 meal. Those are warning signs. Those are warning signs. And so I believe that we have to pay attention to those little, the Bible, it says this little foxes spoil the vine. It's those little things. Sometimes we're looking for something major. And it's oftentimes not the big things, it's the small things that we should pay attention to. So when I use the word warning signs, warnings are things that are put in place in order to help us avoid encountering a pitfall. in our day-to-day life. It could be a stop sign, it could be a yield sign, it could be our GPS rerouting us because it knows that there's an accident up the road. And so we don't end up waiting in 2 hours worth of traffic, especially if we're on those 2-lane highways. It will try and reroute us. But sometimes when we're stubborn, we don't take heed to the warning sign. And when we fail to take heed to warning signs, that is when we find ourselves in pitfalls.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. And you spoke about gathering data. We as nurses know that we related to the nursing process. We gather our data so we know what our goal is going to be, what our interventions are going to be. Watching that person interact with support staff, is definitely a way to determine how they treat people. If they treat this person the way that you were describing, what do you feel they're saying on how they would treat you in the future?
Well, if a person is impatient with an individual that's serving them, first of all, when people we'll go back to the restaurant scenario. When people bring food to the table, the person who is presenting the food to us or serving the food to us is not the person that prepared the food. So I'm looking at the person's ability to analyze, okay, why would I be harsh towards this individual when they're merely the person who's bringing me the food? They're not the person that prepared the food. They didn't go to culinary school. They're not the chef. They're the person who's preparing the food, who's bringing the food to me. So not to be considerate of something as simple as that, then to me, that's a person that could probably lash out at me if they were having a bad day. That's how at this point in my life, I look at things like that. I pay attention to things like that.
Right. And that's very true. And also how you see them interact. I've noticed in my dating, how they interact with their family members, and particularly the women in their family. I've noticed that if there's like a disregard or a sense of entitlement when they're dealing with the women in their family or their child's mother or anything like that, that to me is a red flag, because how you treat them is eventually how you're going to treat me. And if I see that you have a disrespect towards the women in your family, I know that sooner or later that is going to be a part of our relationship. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I agree with that. However, I believe that sometimes we believe that I'm the exception to the rule. They treat this person this way because they deserved it. They treated this person this particular way because they weren't cooperating. They treated this person this particular way because they didn't understand them. So sometimes I've been in situations where I'm like, oh, I'm different. I'm the one that is going to get the prize. I'm the one that they finally understand how to treat a woman, and I will be the one that will benefit from that information or that place that they've attained in their life. And oftentimes that is just not true. It's just not true. That, toxic sometimes, womanizing, and and you have to pay attention, I would say, even the more to people in the family, to the roles that friends, cousins, sisters play in their lives. And it can be that this person is almost lorded upon. So
Yes.
that I don't think they're going to change just because I came into their life. That is going to be something that they expect me to carry over, I would say.
I agree. And I've seen that too, where they can do no wrong and the family will know that this person has certain issues. And like the term you use, lorded on, I love that. And they have been. This person has never had to be accountable. So he's not going to know how to be accountable in a relationship with you. They have never been held responsible for their actions. No matter what they do, they could do no wrong. So no matter how much wrong they've done, it's the continuum because they've never had boundaries set. And yeah, I've experienced that in a relationship. I completely agree with you because it makes it a challenge, and you have to deal with that as their mate or their spouse. Um, how about how they exited the last relationship? I think going back to what you said is how we sometimes feel like we're going to be the one to make the change and it's going to be different um, with us versus how they treat other people. I've noticed that there are people who get in relationships with people, the whole old saying, how you get your man is how you lose your man. And you'll see how they may have exited the last relationship and you think that that's going to be an exception for you. Do you consider that to be a red flag too, how they exited their last relationship and how they speak about the ex?
Absolutely. There is two sides to every story.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the phrases I use is that people tend to use they give us the victimized version.
Yeah.
Always leery of people who always paint themselves as the victim. Okay. So you mean to tell me this relationship didn't work because you did everything right and they did everything wrong? And at the same time, if we have the ability in ourselves to heal, to restore, why weren't you able to heal and restore this person that you claim was so broken?
Mm-hmm.
What was missing and lacking in you that you weren't even, because none of us come to the table 100%.
Right.
All come to the table with some degree of baggage, history, hurt, disappointment. Some of us have literally been emotionally, financially drugged. And
Yeah.
so we come to the table with all of these different problems and issues. So is this person presenting themselves to me as they're not able to deal with anything like that? So if I hit a hard place, if I find myself failing, will they do to me what they did to the previous person? But it all goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think for me, I would think I'm going to be the one who's the exception to the rule.
Right. What have you learned from that? Feeling like you're the one that's going to be the exception to the rule. I know you stated earlier that's not the case, but can you delve a little bit more into what that has been like for you? I'll share my experience as well, because I think we as women, because we are nurturers, because we love caring for people, and we always empathize where I shouldn't say always, we usually empathize with our partner. And we feel like if we have this person, if they just let me help them and take care of them, we can save them and we'll be okay. What else have you learned from the mindset of I'm going to be the exception to the rule?
Thinking that I'm going to be the exception to the rule, it basically, for me, it took away from principles that I know to be true.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
one of the principles that I know to be true is a wise woman buildeth up her house with her hands, but a foolish woman plucketh it down. So I can be wise and I can build, or I can be foolish and I can pluck down. So when I'm plucking down and pulling down, I'm failing to see the truth and the principle associated with the fact that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I've
Yes,
just
ma'am.
put that on the back burner as if it can't happen. And even though I've seen it in real life, this and it doesn't necessarily, some things are subtle, and I think oftentimes we don't pay attention to things because they're subtle. And but what I mean by that is maybe the person doesn't walk up to us and snatch our purse or grab our wallet. Maybe they steal by slowly detracting from us. They disparage us. They slowly eat away at our foundation. Notice the first part of the scripture says we build up our house. So what are the things that we're doing to build it up? We have security, we have safety, we have resources inside of our house. But yet we've done all these things to build ourselves up. In today's time, we've educated ourselves. We have investments. We have a fortified group of people around us that love us. We have people that they will be honest with us because they do love us.
Mm-hmm.
But when we begin to break that house down, oftentimes we will disappear. I know I've done it. I've talked to people and nobody knew who I was talking to because I thought I just found the one.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want one's advice.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm in the process of breaking down my house. I'm putting myself in a position where I'm vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Bible says, it's a city without walls. When you don't have walls around you, it means that you are open. You are open for any kind of prey, wild animal, wild beast. And so when these people come in, they come in to tear us down. They
Right.
come in to sometimes kill what we spent years building up. And not necessarily to kill us, although we do know it can happen in the natural, kill a person, literally kill the body. But sometimes they can just kill our spirit. They can kill our will. They can kill our vision by talking down to us and making us feel like we're not going to be able to acquire that vision that God put in us. So those are just some of the things, it destroying us, literally try and bring us to a place where the person that we were when we met them, that person doesn't even exist anymore. And then we spend years fighting and trying to build ourselves back up to where we were because we allowed someone to come in and we plucked everything down, everything that we knew, principles, values that we had. We literally have to look at ourselves sometimes and say, I can't even believe this happened to me.
Yeah.
Right. That is how strategic it can be because we fail to pay attention to the warning signs.
Absolutely. And that's going to back to what you said about wisdom. That's why wisdom is so important. And I talked about this a little bit in my healing process podcast. And I talked about how I was in love with a narcissist, right? And like you said, there's that grooming process. So they'll build you up to tear you down. They will come, the jealousy, they can be really jealous of you and you won't even realize it because you feel like this is my partner, this is the person that I love and they should want the best for me because I want the best for them, right? So you're trying to be a better version of yourself and they are slowly in that grooming process tearing you down here and there, the backhanded comments and compliments and, just picking at anything they may perceive to be a insecurity or anything like that. So getting back to the wisdom statement, one thing that I did in my singleness for when I first thing was rebuild my relationship with God, because there's so much, once you have that relationship, there's so much wisdom and peace and you have that connection and you can really go and sit at his feet to say, okay, what's going on here? And then I had to rebuild the relationship with myself so that I can trust myself again. Because sometimes we beat ourselves up for decisions we made, and that resentment that we have with ourselves will stop us from moving forward. So you have to rebuild that relationship with yourself so you can trust yourself again and you can listen to your own tuition and, allow yourself to be vulnerable again and start anew in your new relationship once your healing process, has, gone underway or gotten to a place where you feel safe enough to move forward in another relationship.
When you, kind of thinking about us as nurses, sometimes, we look at a patient and we think that we see the whole picture and it takes investigation. And we have to use all of our senses. And I think that's what we lose sometimes when we are in the presence of a narcissist. We're so busy lending our ear, that sense of hearing, over to what they're saying to us until we're not allowing our eyes to see, or we're not allowing our intuition, that built-in piece of us that nobody can see. We're not, which is God speaking to us. We just totally sit that on the back burner because we're going off of what we hear this person saying. Okay. even if I've seen things, just little glimpses of things, and I could feel my spirit saying, watch that, pay attention, that deserves a little more analyzing, right? It's just like if we're taking care of a patient and we see them walk into the restroom and then they kind of lean over and like maybe grab their hip a little bit, right? We don't ignore that. We acknowledge that. And I think it's important for us when we're talking about paying attention to these warning signs. Sometimes hindsight is 2020, as they say, right? I remember, we might say, oh yeah, I remember a time when they didn't pick me up on time and I just gave them a pass. They didn't call. Okay, so that was a sign for us to know, hey, this person is inconsiderate. Or maybe they wanted to borrow money early in a relationship. Okay, but we're listening to this person. It's like, well, you had me thinking that you had this amazing business that you're running. So why are you coming to me wanting to borrow money? So I think women as nurturers sometimes, and it could be men as well, as nurturing people, we have to make sure that there's a difference between nurturing someone and enabling someone and allowing a person to victimize us. And oftentimes, because we want that relationship, we want to be the person on social media with the pictures and living my best life and relationship goals and all type of little hearts and stuff and stars around the picture. And we do that too soon, I believe. And once we're out there, it's like, well, now how do I pull back? How do I pull that back? So here again, we have to make sure that we are hearing from God, that we stay close to our Creator, and we let that intuition, that sixth sense inside of us say, okay, you need to pump your brakes. You're getting caught up in the aesthetics of all of this, and you are missing major red flags.
Absolutely. You hear that, ladies and you heard it from gentlemen, you heard it from Dr. Allen, because there's this thing called love bombing where I guess it's a new term, but if you've been on the dating scene for some time, you've run into this person. This is the person that does exactly what you said. They push you. They say, I love you right away. They want everything to go fast. We're going to get married. They're like planning your life together. And you're like, oh, this is great. He's a man who knows what he wants. And he's like ready for us. And you're just going along, but you don't have the time to, as you said, look at the person, really assess the information, gather the information that's needed, because this person is pushing you along so quickly. And before you know it, you're standing in a place and you no longer have the connection with yourself, because this person has pushed you and you don't really know who this person is. This person isn't who they presented themselves to be. They really don't love you. They don't most of the time really love themselves, So I completely agree with you.
And even thinking about when we talk about the data, collecting the data, we collect the data, but then in nursing, we collect the data. We're looking at the person's outward, right? Then we listen to their heart, their lungs. We look to see if there's any swelling in their ankles. And then we go internal. We start looking at lab values. We start comparing, okay, this is abnormal. This is normal. What is this showing me? So when we're dating and we're collecting this data, what are we doing? Are we analyzing the data? And like you said, when they're love bombing us, we are so caught up until we don't even analyze the data. Some things we already know is not adding up. It could be a situation like, okay, so you were married and you had two sons and one was 15 and one was 17, but then you just introduced me to a daughter and the daughter is 16. So you had a child with another person. Now, this is analyzing. Right? But then what do people do? Don't judge. I'm not judging. I'm analyzing.
Right.
I'm just analyzing. I'm just asking questions.
Right.
And if we can't ask questions, that's a problem.
That is very true. Or if you don't get clear answers to your questions, when they kind of like talk in circles or they shut down. Like, I understand that you can't reveal too much too soon. I follow those rules as well, because you have to be careful, because a predator or a manipulator is gathering information on you too, and they're trying to figure out how they can mirror you so you can believe that they're a great fit for you, and then you guys are in a relationship, and then the true them, the mask comes off, and then you get that person and you're like, wait a minute, I thought you loved these things, but no, they just did it to get with you, but that's not who they are. um so yeah, I you got to take your time, gather that information, really pay attention to the signs. And another thing for me is when their words and the actions don't match up. It's like you're saying, they may say, oh, I was in love with this person. And then you hear about how they treated this person, or how often you find out that they cheated with this person, or, they have children, they can say, I'm a very religious person or a very spiritual person. And then they have like 6 or 7 kids by different women. I am not saying that, I'm not questioning anyone's relationship with their creator at all. But what I'm saying is, sometimes I know, as a person who has my own relationship, you get convictions about some things. And how much are you in these children's lives? How much are you really pouring into the family? So they'll have this huge family, but they don't really have a relationship with their children. Like, a lot of those things are red flags for me. I've seen it go a lot of ways. And I remember I dated this one guy, and my friend was telling me the same thing you said. You're being too judgy. Just go ahead, give it a try. You have these rules and so on and so forth. But I was right the whole time. I was right the whole time. So don't question yourself, guys. When you feel that intuition, when your inner spirit or your creator or your spirit guides or whatever you believe in is talking to you, pay attention to those signs and really gather the data, like Dr. Allen said. Okay. What are some signs you believe you overlooked?
Well, one of the main signs I overlooked is just a person that just not being truthful, always trying to make themselves out to be the victim. Anytime something went wrong, never taking responsibility for anything. I call it playing the blame game, always blaming someone else. It's always someone else's fault. I mean, will literally throw their mother under the bus if need be. Total narcissist. Whatever it takes to make me look good, that's what I'm going to do. Needing all the attention, needed to be the loudest person in the room, the person that everyone was paying attention to. Just a person who, like you said, literally I would have conversations with the individual and would leave with no more information after having a conversation with them than I had before the conversation started. Wow, that was good. How in the beginning, I didn't know what it was. I didn't have a name. As nurses, we like put names on things.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hypoglycemic, hyperglycemic. I couldn't even put names on this stuff. I'm like, what is this? But I knew it was wrong. But I think that, like I said previously, sometimes when we're in the middle of something, it's a part of us that does not want to accept the fact that we've made a mistake. And it's better to acknowledge the mistake and hit rewind, back up out of it, and instead of moving forward and getting into it deeper and making a bigger mess out of our lives than they already are.
Absolutely. Great advice. How do you view dating now versus in your 20s?
In my 20s, basically, it was about looks. It was about how a person looked. It was about how a person smelled. It was about, are they saying things that, make me, feel good about myself? It was all outer things. And over time, just life, hard knocks, bad relationships. Now what's important to me is the character of a person. And character is not always something that you can discern over 4 or 5 days. It takes time, because we need time to see a person in different aspects of life. How does this person respond when there's a death in the family? How does this person respond when maybe their child isn't doing well in school? How does this person respond when they're ill? Because we give people passes. Oh, I snapped at you because I don't feel well. Really? That's how you respond when you're sick? Because when I'm sick, I get a little humble because I'm like, oh my God, I need you to touch me. I get kind of quiet, but okay, so you snap at people when you get sick. So I'm looking at a person's character, and that character must stem from a relationship with a higher power. It has to stem, because in and of ourselves, we cannot do it. We can't do it on our own. It takes us being committed and dedicated to godly principles that lead us into a straight path. And if a person does not have that embedded within them, I guarantee you there is no way we can put it in them. We cannot change people. I've learned that. I don't care. I've been up to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning in the basement, didn't want to wake the neighbors up, praying. And I literally did that for 12 years. Wow. 12 years. It took me 12 years, married to him for 14. It took me 12 years to realize you cannot fix this person. God does not bend. He does not break a person's will.
Right.
He does not force people to come to him. So how did I ever think that I could do that? Right. But I did. I thought and that was my perception. I would say in my 20s, my 30s, I thought I could fix people. And maybe that's a downfall of just being a nurse. We just want to prop people up and make it better.
We want to make it better. We do. And I think we're taught that, I was watching, there's this family I watch on YouTube. It's the Harris family, but they go by Belief, I think is the name of his channel. And I love this couple. They talk about their family and their children and their struggles with, he keeps saying that he falls and bumps his head, but like he was so patient with his wife for 6 years over a concern that he had with her. But he knew he couldn't change her, but he was there to support her. And I think that is so healthy. You don't see that, but we do as women and men, because like you said earlier, men are nurturers as well. Feel like we can change people, and guys, you can't change anyone. It isn't even your will. And then another thing is, you have to remember, we all have our own cross to bear, so to speak. So you don't know what lessons this person needs to learn. You don't know how this person needs to be stretched. You don't know how that person needs to grow. You don't know what God's plan is for this person. So who are you to intervene on your own? This isn't anything that you've been guided or led to do on your own to try to fix it. You can't fix it. So to the ladies and the gentlemen out there that's hoping that you can change a person, you cannot change a person. Self-healing is an internal thing. That person has to do it themselves. They have to want it themselves. They have to have their own will. I completely agree with you, doctor. You definitely have to know when to just pray that they seek the wisdom they need and seek the healing they need, but you have to leave it up to that person.
And I think another part, another aspect of it is people, we have to be honest. Oftentimes people just aren't being honest with us. I mean, how many times have we been in relationships and there's other people inside of the relationship, and we start putting 2 and 2 together, and it's like, hold on, wait a minute. How were you here with this person? Wait, when this occurred, we were together. Right. So the aspect is not there like it needs to be. In those experiences, it makes it difficult. It really makes it difficult when we move forward to be able to even be willing to be with that person, the right person, because we're so caught on previous experiences that we've gone through with people. And I think oftentimes, so there has to be a period, I believe, of healing where we allow ourselves to decompress. We allow ourselves to say, okay, I messed up. That was a bad choice, horrible decision. I missed the warning signs. And definitely do not hold bitterness in our heart, because we all know that's not healthy. That's a good segue to all type of mental conditions, hypertension. We don't want to live in that place. That's not a healthy place to live in. So I just think that oftentimes the level of tolerance that one group, and thinking about this family that you're talking about, sometimes people are ordained. I'll use that word.
Okay.
Ordained to be with people and to be able to go through certain difficulties with them in life. And so when we see that in our lives, I have to ask myself, is this what God has for me?
Right.
And I know, because I am a nurturer, there have been times where I've said yes to myself, right? And found myself dealing with someone for 12 years. But I learned from that, because after I moved on, when I saw things like that in relationships in the future, I immediately cut it. And I said to myself, I said, now you won't make that mistake twice. See, once it's a mistake. When it initially happens, it's a mistake. After that, someone said, you're a willing participant, right? A willing participant in your own destruction, demise. So those are things I just think about.
And that's absolutely true. Take the lessons and not the baggage. Take the lessons, not the baggage. Absolutely. Because you do become a willing participant. You're like, why does this keep happening to me? You have to ask yourself, what kind of choices are you making? What's consistent. And when you talked about how you have to take time to heal, I talk about that a lot on this channel. It is so important, because you really have to step away and say, what part did I play? And sometimes we don't want to be accountable for our own, part in the demise of the relationship, or even just picking the wrong person. You may not have been the one that cheated. You may not have been the one that was mean. You may not be the narcissist, but like you said, sometimes like you see something and you just keep repeating that pattern, or you keep dating the same type of person. I have learned, it took me a long time to learn this lesson, but I have learned that I cannot deal with a man who has mother issues, right? And so before, because of my own past, it was something that was related. Now, I love my mom. I'm not saying I don't love my mom, but we've had a strained relationship. And that was something, I guess they call it trauma bonding. They have a title for everything. So I think they call it trauma bonding. So I would date someone who has something similar to that, because when you date someone who doesn't have that past, then they view you as different. And I just didn't, honestly, in my 20s, I didn't want to deal with that. I wanted someone who understood me, so to speak. So I thought. And when 2013 was like the start of me really, really digging into myself. And that was the one thing that was consistent. Like there was a mother issue. Either, I grew up during the crack era. So a lot of moms were on drugs. A lot of moms just left the home. A lot of people were raised by their grandparents, things like that. And those men, women too, but I date men, they would have issues, like they had a love-hate relationship with women, and I had to come to terms like, you are selecting these people. I wasn't doing it intentionally to hurt myself. So guys, you got to know you're not doing these things intentionally all the time, but you do have to reflect on, why do I keep making this mistake? And that came to me. I'll never forget the day that came to me. Like, you keep picking these kind of people. You have to stop picking these kind of people. We all come with baggage. We all have a background. We all have history, right? And I'm not saying that a guy or a person who's had a strained relationship with their parents isn't a person you can have a relationship with, but you need to really know. Like, now I know. I have to ask, what type of healing have you done? How do you cope? how do you feel about certain things, you know? And even in the Bible, it tells you 4 seasons. You need to spend 4 seasons with someone. And that's to go back to your points on, you need to know how they handle things, how they go through, how do they react to people, how do they interact with people when there's a challenge, how do they act, do they shut down, can they communicate, do they have coping skills, do they have any tools to use to help them out? So that now for me is big, whereas in my 20s I was clueless as to knowing that that part was missing and I needed that information in order to move forward in a relationship.
And I think to add to what you're saying, oftentimes I think we have to dispel some of the notions and the cliches that are in the community. I remember people say 2 halves make a whole, but in relationships, that's not true. You need 2 wholes to make a whole.
Yes, ma'am.
Notorious for when you talk about what you attract. I was notorious for thinking, okay, even if they don't make a lot of money, we can put our stuff together. And if I put my stuff with his stuff, we could have something. And it's like, no, you need to attract someone, you need to accept someone who has the ability to stand on their own 2 feet, and then you stand on your own 2 feet, and then the 2 of you come together. And I believe that for me, it could be probably because I was the oldest out of brothers. So I was used to being the leader. I was accustomed to being the one who made sure everyone, was out of the door on time. My mom would already be going to work. So I just took this leadership role, not realizing that when a man and a woman come together, it should be you have that feminine energy and that masculine energy coming together, and it should be a fine, graceful dance that occurs when the 2 people are healthy. I give way to him, he gives way to me. And in dancing, we all know that there are times where the woman can take the lead in certain moves, and there are times when the man can take the lead. And so that for me caused me not to experience ultimate in relationships. And it really does go back, to what you were saying about just recognizing times and seasons where you have to sit back, reflect, and heal. And you really do, we really do attract what we are. We really do attract because there are predators out there and they study us. We give a lot of information out. We overshare. We say too much. We tell people what our occupation is just on and we've been conditioned by social media, and some people who are predators can take that information and can literally use it to annihilate us. And that is why it's so important for us to pay attention to all of the warning signs that are coming at us as we encounter and have interactions with these individuals.
Absolutely. I agree. And I know someone's going to say, you guys talk about being transparent, but then you're saying don't reveal too much. Everything is in due time. I think some people on the first 1 or 2 dates, they're just like spilling all the beans. No, take your time. I think the takeaway message, really one of them anyway, is to really take your time, use your discernment, really watch what's happening, pray about the person you're involved with. Like one of my prayers always, especially when I meet new people in general, in any walk of life, any aspect of my life, is if this person is for me, let me know. If this person is not for me or means harm, please remove them. Like that's one of my prayers, because you never know. People come dressed in, our wolves in sheep's clothing all the time. And, if you are a kind person, people will take advantage of your kindness. They'll take advantage of the parts of you that hasn't been healed. Vultures, predators, as you stated, they're out there. So yeah, it's okay to be vulnerable in a safe space. Just don't give too much too soon to someone you don't know and you haven't gotten that confirmation that that person is okay to, open up to. Would you agree with that, Dr. Allen?
100%. I agree 100%. And everything you just said requires courage.
Yes, yes.
It requires courage. When we're assessing our patient and we see things don't look right, it takes courage to get on that phone and call that doctor and say, this is what I see. And I need to know, do you want me to get some lab? It takes courage. And sometimes get pushback from them, right? They might not agree with what
Mhm.
we're saying, but we have to stand on our, on our square, as they say, and let them know, no, this is what I think is going on. And so once we do all the assessing and the gathering of the data and the analyzing, then it takes courage to say, you know what, this person is not healthy for me. I need to step back from this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, our final question of the night: what advice do you have for young singles?
One of the pieces of advice I have for young singles is educate yourself.
Mhm.
Educate yourself. There are people who are in relationships with people, and it's because not because they don't think that it's a bad relationship. They know it's a bad relationship. They are a victim in the situation. But there are too many times where people stay in relationships because financially they cannot afford to leave. And I know for myself, there have been twice, where I was able to get out of relationships because I did not depend on that person financially. I had the financial wherewithal to be able to analyze the situation and make a move. So I would tell people, um, instead of looking at getting in-depth relationships with people, it's probably better to make sure you're educated, get your business, make yourself financially stable and sound. Second thing, if they have a mom, have a conversation with their mom. This is the person that birthed and in most cases raised that individual. And if they're honest with you, because I remember a person's mom. I had a lady told me one time, she said, I know you don't have intentions on marrying him, do you?
Mm.
She literally told me, she said, he's crazy. And guess what? I took heed. I
Mhm.
avoided that bullet, right?
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
really, so pay attention, educate yourselves, watch the relationship they have with their parents. If they have both parents, look at the way their father treats their mother. This is what they have been raised under.
Mhm.
Okay. And then also in the beginning, just kind of go slow, pay attention to how they respond to you, look at their character. And when you see things, when you see character flaws, please don't dismiss it. I think that's what we do. Sometimes we get so caught up in the physical attributes of a person and until we forget those inner qualities, because it's the inner qualities that are going to cause that relationship to be able to survive all the storms that life throws us.
Mhm. I agree. I agree. Is there anything else you would like to add before we conclude tonight's episode?
I would like to say thank you for having me
Oh, you're
and
welcome.
allowing me to share my thoughts and my experiences. And I believe that overall, if we just pay attention, just be alert, center ourselves, make sure we're healthy so we can be that analytical tool that God needs us to be in order for us to be able to diagnose and be able to see what is coming into our lives.
Mhm.
People should be invited into our lives. They shouldn't just be able to bulldoze their way into our lives. And some of us allow that to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. Boundaries are important. Have your boundaries. Know yourself, love yourself, heal from your past traumas. And healing is a continuum, as we like to say in nursing. It's something that you'll always do because things happen throughout life. The longer you live, the more you see, the more you endure. But if you have the right proper tools to get yourself through those things, and you know what to do to help heal, and just spend time with knowing who you are as a person and trusting that, I think you'll be okay. I appreciate you for coming on. I love your energy as always. I love your spirit. You're such a great person. I really appreciate you, Dr. Allen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, please don't forget, I should say, to like, share, and subscribe. If you're listening to this on a podcast episode, Thank you. Please subscribe so you can get notified of my upcoming podcast. I have a new podcast every Wednesday. I am on all podcast platforms and I appreciate you. You can always email me at lettheladyspeak.com at gmail.com, or you can go to Anchor FM under Let the Lady Speak and leave me a voice message if you have any questions. Okay. I thank you for coming and spending the evening with us. Love you for who you are, and thank you for letting me speak. Have a great night.